The November rain in Manhattan was unforgiving. It beat against the high windows of the Upper East Side office with a violence that contrasted with the absolute silence inside. Dr. Elena Vance adjusted her thick tortoiseshell glasses, an accessory she didn't technically need, but which added gravitas to her 27-year-old face. She smoothed her cool wool pencil skirt and checked her watch. 5:55 p.m. Her last patient, a real estate agent with an Oedipus complex, had just left. The office was her fortress. Sand-colored walls, an original Eames armchair, a discreet velvet couch, and Columbia University diplomas strategically lit. Everything there was designed to scream experience and competence, disguising the fact that Elena was still paying off astronomical student loans and that the rent for that room consumed 70% of her monthly income. She was about to grab her bag to leave when the intercom buzzed. The voice of Clara, her secretary, sounded tremulous. "Dr. Vance? There's a man here. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says he's not leaving." Elena frowned. "Tell him to call tomorrow, Clara. I don't see emergencies without triage." "I told him, doctor. But he's already coming in." The solid oak door of the office opened before Elena could protest. Nathaniel Cross entered like a storm. He was soaked. His black cashmere overcoat dripped water onto Elena's immaculate Persian rug. But what caught the eye wasn't the expensive clothes or the lack of an umbrella, it was the nervous electricity emanating from him. Elena recognized him immediately. It was impossible not to. At 30 years old, Nathaniel Cross was the face of American fintech. Cover of Forbes, darling of Wall Street, the golden boy who turned code into billions. In person, however, he looked less golden and more broken. His blue eyes were red with exhaustion, and his hands trembled slightly at his sides. "Mr. Cross," Elena said, remaining seated, using the desk as a shield. Her voice came out firm, trained. "You are invading my office." "I don't have time for protocols, doctor," he said. His voice was hoarse, rapid. He didn't sit down. He paced back and forth like a caged animal. "They told me you're brilliant. That you're cold. That you don't hold anyone's hand to cry. Is it true? I am a psychoanalyst, not a friend for hire." "If you want, I want to stop dying," he interrupted her, stopping abruptly and leaning both hands on her desk, leaning in. Water from his hair dripped onto her leather planner. 3 times this week. 3 times I thought my heart had stopped. Tachycardia, shortness of breath, the floor disappearing. The company doctor gave me Xanax and told me to take a vacation. If I take Xanax, I lose my focus. If I take a vacation, the market swallows me. Panic attacks, Elena diagnosed calmly. Common in high-performance profiles. You need regular therapy and perhaps assisted medication. I can give you the contact of a colleague who, no. His shout made the crystals on the shelf vibrate. He breathed deeply, trying to control himself. I don't want a 60-year-old man telling me to slow down. I can't slow down. I'm 30 years old. I'm at my peak. And I'm about to embark on the biggest round of deals of my life. He pulled a wet envelope from the inside pocket of his jacket and threw it on the table. "What is this?" Elena asked, without touching the paper. "My schedule. And your job proposal." Elena looked at him, incredulous. "Mr. Cross, therapy happens here. In this setting. With fixed times. Tomorrow morning my jet leaves for San Francisco. Then Aspen. Then the Hamptons. 6 weeks. A roadshow to open the capital of my new holding company." He spoke quickly, tripping over his words. "I need you to come with me." Elena laughed, a short, dry sound. That's absurd. I have other patients. I have a life. And ethically, I cannot be your luxury companion. That breaks analytic neutrality. I don't want a companion. Women for dinner I can get with a snap of my fingers. His look became hard, professional. I want an anchor. Someone to be there when I come out of a 5-hour meeting and feel the walls closing in. Someone to stop me from doing something crazy. No, Elena stood up. She was 5 feet 5 inches, he was 6 feet 2 inches, but she held his gaze. What you ask is impossible. I suggest you leave now. Nathaniel pulled out a checkbook. With quick movements, he filled out a sheet, tore it off, and slid it next to the wet planner. Elena looked at the number. Her eyes widened imperceptibly. It was enough to pay off her student loans, pay the rent for the entire year, and there would still be enough to renovate the office. It was obscene. That's not a bribe, Dr. Vance, he said, seeing her hesitation. It's the price of your exclusivity. I understand that you're 27 years old and struggling to keep this expensive address in Manhattan. I know what it's like. The hunger to prove that you belong in this place. Elena felt her face heat up. He had read her as easily as he read the stock market. You investigated me. I don't hire anyone without due diligence. He relaxed his posture for the first time, seeing that he had touched a sensitive point. We're from the same generation, Elena. You understand the pressure. Other therapists, they'll treat me like a rich, spoiled kid. You know what it costs to get here so young. Elena looked at the check, then at the rain outside, and finally at the man in front of her. He was arrogant, invasive, and would probably be the most difficult patient of her life. But there was genuine terror deep in those blue eyes. He was asking for help in the only way he knew how, negotiating. I have rules, she said, her voice low. Nathaniel stopped breathing for a second. I'm listening. Separate rooms. On different floors, if possible. No social interaction outside sessions or acute crises. I don't have dinner with you, I don't go to parties with you, I don't carry your bags. I am your doctor. If you confuse the roles a single time, I take the first commercial flight back and keep the money. A slight smile, almost imperceptible, touched Nathaniel's lips. Done. And one more thing, Elena added, crossing her arms. You're going to buy an umbrella. You're wetting my entire carpet. Nathaniel looked at the soaked floor and let out a short, hoarse laugh. Fair. He turned to leave, the energy in the room changing from confrontation to something new, undefined and dangerous. The driver picks you up at 6 a.m. Be ready, Dr. Vance. California awaits us. When the door closed, Elena fell into her leather armchair. The silence returned to the office, but the peace was gone. She looked at the check on the table and was absolutely certain she had just sold her soul, or perhaps, she was about to find one that desperately needed saving. At 6 a.m., the air at Teterboro Executive Airport was freezing and smelled of kerosene and old money. Elena got out of the black car that had picked her up, clutching her carry-on bag hard enough to turn her knuckles white. She had chosen her wardrobe with surgical precision, navy blue tailored trousers, a silk blouse buttoned up to the neck, and a structured trench coat. Nothing that suggested relaxation. Nothing that suggested a 27-year-old woman about to embark on an adventure. Nathaniel was already inside the jet, a Gulfstream G650 that looked more like a flying living room than a means of transport. When Elena entered, he didn't even look up from his tablet. He was without his jacket, the sleeves of his white shirt rolled up to the elbows, revealing a watch that cost more than her entire college education. Late, he murmured, his fingers sliding frantically across the screen. Elena checked her wristwatch. It's 6:02 a.m., Mr. Cross. Traffic in the Lincoln Tunnel doesn't obey your payroll. He stopped, raised his head, and a glint of amusement passed through his tired eyes. I like that. Don't apologize if it's not your fault. Sit down. Coffee? Water, thank you. Takeoff was smooth, almost imperceptible. While New York disappeared beneath the gray clouds, Elena opened her notebook. Her instinct was to start analyzing, observing his body language, the nervous tick in his left leg, the way he bit the inside of his cheek while reading reports. But Nathaniel wasn't there for therapy. Not at that moment. He was in war mode. During the 5.5-hour flight to California, he made 3 conference calls, rewrote a speech, and drank 4 double espressos. Elena felt, for the first time in her career, superfluous. She was an expensive piece of furniture he had bought in case the building collapsed. Landing in San Francisco brought a change of atmosphere. The sky was an aggressive blue, and the air seemed to vibrate with static electricity. The car took them directly to Palo Alto, to a hotel that was the epicenter of power in Silicon Valley. There was no gilded marble like in New York. Here, luxury was glass, sustainable wood, and Japanese minimalism. At the check-in counter, the first crack in the armor. "Mr. Cross, welcome back," said the receptionist, a young woman with a trained smile. "We have the presidential suite prepared. And for Mrs. Cross." The silence that followed lasted only 2 seconds, but to Elena it felt like an eternity. "Dr. Vance," Elena corrected, her voice cutting like ice. "And I need a separate room. Preferably on another floor. And the bill should be invoiced separately for tax purposes, although paid by Mr. Cross's corporate card." Nathaniel, who was signing the papers, stopped his pen. He looked at Elena sideways, and then at the blushing receptionist. "Do what the doctor says," he said, with a dry tone. "She is very strict about her feng shui." As they walked away from the counter, Elena whispered, furious, "Feng shui? It was better than explaining that I'm paying a fortune for you to ensure I don't have a nervous breakdown in the middle of the lobby," he retorted, entering the elevator. "Be in my suite at 7 p.m. I have an hour before dinner with the investors from Sequoia." Nathaniel's suite was a glass aquarium overlooking the Santa Cruz Mountains. At 7 p.m., the sun was setting, bathing the room in golden and orange light. When Elena entered, Nathaniel was standing by the panoramic window. He had showered and changed clothes. The stiff New York suit was gone, replaced by dark chinos, designer sneakers, and a basic black t-shirt. The uniform of the billionaire tech bro. He looked younger. And that was dangerous. "Sit down, Nathaniel," Elena said, indicating an armchair away from the window. She pulled an office chair for herself, creating the necessary distance. He didn't sit. He continued looking at the street below. "Look at them," he said, his voice low. Elena stood up and approached cautiously, stopping 2 meters from him. Down below, in the hotel courtyard, groups of young programmers and entrepreneurs drank craft beer. There was laughter, skate shoes, backpacks. "What do you see?" she asked. "I see kids of 22, 23 years old. They're talking about code, about changing the world, about which bar they're going to invade next." He turned to Elena. The light of the sunset illuminated half his face. "I'm 30 years old, Elena. They look at me as if I were an ancient god. A war veteran. You are a benchmark for them. I am a warning," he laughed, humorlessly. "I sold my youth. From 20 to 30, I didn't live. I built. While they fell in love, made stupid mistakes, and backpacked, I was in meeting rooms convincing old men that my algorithm was worth billions." He began to pace the room, the anxious energy returning. "And now I'm here. I have the money. I have the power. And I feel like I'm 60 inside. My chest tightens just thinking about walking into that dining room tonight and having to smile and pretend I'm the infallible visionary. Elena felt a pang in her own chest. It was countertransference knocking at the door. She looked at him and saw the mirror of her own life. The nights in the Columbia Library while friends went to parties. The obsession with the perfect grade. The need to be an adult before her time. You are grieving, Nathaniel, she said softly. He stopped and looked at her. Frowning. Grieving? No one died. The 20-year-old Nathaniel died. You killed him to create CEO Nathaniel Cross. And you never held his funeral. You never allowed yourself to be irresponsible. Nathaniel fell silent. He crossed his arms, the defined muscles under the black t-shirt tensing. And you? He asked, turning the focus to her. A classic defense tactic. We are not talking about me. Yes, we are. You're 27. You dress like a 50-year-old librarian. You talk like a Freud textbook. Where did you bury Elena? That is irrelevant to your treatment. Is it? He took a step toward her. Elena stood firm, although his scent, sandalwood and something citrus, invaded her personal space. We are both trapped in this gilded cage, Doctor. We are two prodigies who forgot how to be people. That's why you accepted to come. It wasn't just for the money. Elena felt her heart race. He was too perceptive. Too dangerous. The session is over, she said, closing the notebook with a dry snap. You have a dinner. Breathe deeply 3 times before entering the room. Remember, anxiety is just a false danger signal. You are not in danger. Nathaniel looked at her for another moment, his blue eyes stripping away her professional facade. Then, the shark smile returned, but it didn't reach his eyes. Of course, Dr. Vance. Thank you for the clarity. He picked up a casual blazer and walked to the door. Before leaving, he stopped. Don't order room service. There's an incredible sushi restaurant 2 blocks away. Go there. Eat something that hasn't been prepared in an industrial kitchen. It's a doctor's order, or almost that. When the door closed, Elena let out the air she didn't even know she was holding. Her legs trembled slightly. She went to the window and looked at the courtyard below. She saw Nathaniel leaving the hotel, his posture straightening, the mask of power descending over his face. She saw the young people in the courtyard stop to watch him pass, with admiration. He was alone in the crowd. And for the first time, in that luxurious and silent room, Elena felt that she was too. The landing in Aspen was turbulent, the jet fighting crosswinds sweeping through the Rocky Mountains. While the plane shook, Elena gripped the arms of the leather seat. Across the aisle, Nathaniel didn't even blink. He looked out the window at the white immensity below, his face immobile like a marble statue. They didn't stay in a hotel this time. The armored car took them to a private property nestled on the slope of Red Mountain. The house wasn't just a residence, it was a statement of power. An imposing structure of dark wood, rough stone, and 6-meter-high glass walls. My refuge, said Nathaniel, getting out of the car and inhaling the thin, freezing air. Or my winter prison. Depends on the year. Elena got out, the icy air cutting her face immediately. The silence there was different from New York or Palo Alto. It was a heavy, absolute silence that seemed to swallow any sound. Where will I stay? She asked, pulling her coat closer to her body. There is a guest house connected to the main one by a covered walkway. You'll have your privacy, Doctor. Don't worry. 2 days passed. Nathaniel spent the mornings on video calls with Asian and European investors, locked in the office. Elena tried to read in her room, but the altitude and isolation made her restless. On the third afternoon, the session was scheduled for 4 p.m. Elena headed to the main room, prepared with her notebook and her professional posture. She found the room empty. The monumental fireplace was lit, crackling, but Nathaniel wasn't there. She found him on the outdoor terrace, standing in the snow, wearing only a thick wool sweater and ski pants, no coat. He was looking at the tree line where the forest became dense. Elena opened the sliding glass door. The cold invaded the heated room. "Mr. Cross, the session was supposed to start 10 minutes ago. It's freezing out here." "Enough of the couch," he said without turning around. His voice sounded different there. Less metallic, more human. "I can't sit inside today. The walls feel like they're shrinking." "Then let's talk out here." "But put on a coat." "No. Let's walk." He turned to her. His face was flushed from the cold, his blue eyes bright. "Patience orders. I need movement. My body is full of adrenaline and I have nowhere to spend it." Elena hesitated. "This isn't a session, Nathaniel. It's a walk. Call it peripatetic therapy. Aristotle did it. Let's go." He tossed her a pair of snow boots that were by the door and an extra coat that looked too big for her. "Put it on. I don't want you to die of hypothermia and sue me." Elena sighed, defeated by his stubbornness, and put on the boots. They walked in silence for a few minutes, the sound of snow crunching under their boots being the only noise. They were surrounded by tall pines laden with white. The world seemed to have been paused. "My father died on a mountain like this," Nathaniel said suddenly, breaking the silence. He didn't look at her, continued walking, hands in his pockets. Elena activated analytical mode immediately, although she was struggling to keep his pace in the deep snow. "You never mentioned your father in the intake forms." "He didn't like to be mentioned. He was a hard man. Old money from the East Coast. He thought emotions were a manufacturing defect, like a limp leg." Nathaniel stopped and looked at the top of a distant peak. "When I was 10, I fell skiing. I broke my arm. It hurt like hell. I started crying, naturally. He looked at me, in the snow, and said, 'Get up, Nathaniel. Crosses don't cry. Crying is a waste of water and dignity.'" Elena stopped beside him. The image of the 10-year-old boy, hurt and rejected in the snow, superimposed itself on the image of the 30-year-old billionaire beside her. "And you got up," she stated. "I got up. And I never cried again. Not at his funeral, not when my first company almost went bankrupt, not when I felt alone. I think I spent 20 years holding back the tears from that day." Elena looked at his profile. The tight jaw, the rigid posture. He wasn't just a successful man, he was a survivor of a brutal upbringing. "You don't need to be strong all the time, Nathaniel," she said, her voice soft, almost muffled by the snow. "Not here. Not with me. Your father isn't watching." He turned slowly to her. The wind tousled his hair, making him look less controlled. He looked at Elena, really looked, and she felt the weight of that gaze. He wasn't seeing Dr. Vance. He was seeing the 27-year-old woman, wrapped in an oversized coat, with a red nose from the cold, who had had the courage to accompany him to the end of the world. "You say that," he murmured, taking a step toward her. The snow crunched. "But you do the same thing." "What?" "You hide." He reached out and, in a gesture that broke all the rules of the APA Code of Ethics, touched the frame of her glasses. "You use this as a shield. Clothes that hide the body, difficult words that hide the fear. You're 27, Elena. Why are you so afraid of being young? Elena stood paralyzed. His touch, even through the leather glove, seemed to burn the skin of her face. His breath formed white clouds that mixed with hers. So that men like you respect me, she whispered, honesty escaping before she could filter it. If I'm just Elena, I'm a kid. If I'm Dr. Vance, I'm an authority. Nathaniel moved an inch closer. The space between them vibrated. I respect Dr. Vance, he said, his voice grave. But I think I'm starting to like Elena a lot more. The world stopped. There was no wind, no cold, no million-dollar contracts. Just the unbearable tension of two young bodies attracted to each other in the middle of nowhere. He looked at her lips, and Elena felt the overwhelming impulse to lean in, to close the distance, to send ethics to hell. But fear was faster. Fear of losing her career, fear of being just another conquest for him, fear of losing herself. She took a step back, almost stumbling in the snow. It's getting too cold, she said, her voice trembling, looking away. We have to go back. The session, time is up. Nathaniel stood still for a moment, his hands still suspended in the air where her face had been. A shadow of disappointment passed through his eyes, but he soon recovered the mask. Of course, he said, his tone returning to cold and distant. Let's go back. I have a call with London in 30 minutes. He turned his back and started walking toward the house, strides long and fast. Elena stood still for a second, looking at his broad back, feeling a cold that had nothing to do with the snow. She had maintained her professionalism. She had saved her career. But as she walked behind him, feeling small in the white vastness, she couldn't help but feel she had just made a terrible mistake. The Hamptons in late autumn had nothing to do with the summer parties of Gatsby or sunny brunches. It was a melancholy place, gray and violently beautiful. Nathaniel's property in East Hampton stood on the tip of a secluded dune, facing the Atlantic. The sea was rough, gray waves crashing against the sand with a roar that could be heard inside the house, even with the double windows closed. It was the last week. The deadline. For 4 days, the house turned into a war bunker. Lawyers, bankers, and assistants came and went, but Nathaniel kept Elena close, like an amulet. Whenever his breath hitched, he looked at her in the corner of the room. She nodded, a minimal gesture that said, "You are in control." And he continued. On Thursday night, a storm swept the East Coast. The rain beat against the panes as if wanting to force its way in. At 9 p.m., the door to Nathaniel's office opened. He came out, holding a bottle of red wine in one hand and 2 crystal glasses in the other. His white shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled up, hair disheveled. But his eyes shone with a light Elena had never seen. It wasn't panic. It was pure triumph. "It's done," he said, his voice echoing in the empty living room. Elena looked up from the book she was pretending to read. The deal? The IPO? The merger? Everything. He placed the glasses on the coffee table and poured the wine. The dark liquid swirled in the crystal. "We signed 10 minutes ago. Starting tomorrow morning, when the Wall Street bell rings, the company is worth $40 billion. And I am officially free from the pressure." He extended a glass to her. "Nathaniel, I don't drink with patience. It's a violation, the contract is over, Elena." He cut her off, his smile wide and dangerous. "The work is done. I survived. You did your part. Now, we are just celebrating the fact that I didn't have a heart attack at 30. Elena looked at the glass. The sound of rain and sea outside was deafening. The house was empty, he had dismissed the cleaning staff and the chef because of the storm. It was just the two of them and a bottle of wine that probably cost more than her car. She accepted the glass. Just one. To toast your success. To our success. They sat on the plush rug in front of the gas fireplace, which cast dancing shadows on the walls. Nathaniel took a long sip, closing his eyes, his body visibly relaxing for the first time in 6 weeks. "You know what's funny?" he said, looking at the fire. "Now that I've arrived here, at the top of the mountain, the only thing I can think about isn't the money. It's Aspen." Elena felt her stomach tighten. Aspen was a difficult time. The isolation. Don't analyze, Elena. Please. For at least one night, turn off Dr. Vance. He turned to her, leaning his elbow on the rug. "I'm talking about the moment in the snow. When I almost kissed you. And when you almost let me." "I wasn't going to let you," she lied, her voice weak. "Yes, you were." He moved closer. The electricity returned, stronger than ever, fueled by the adrenaline of victory and the isolation of the storm. "You were trembling. And it wasn't from the cold." "Nathaniel, stop." Elena tried to back away, but her back hit the sofa. "You are euphoric. It's a common reaction after a period of intense stress. It's called reactive mania. You are looking for a dopamine release and..." He moved fast. In a second, he took the glass from her hand and set it on the floor. In the other, his hands were on her face, holding her firmly, but without violence. "Stop hiding behind books," he whispered, their faces inches apart. "Look at me. I'm 30. You're 27. We spent the last 6 weeks dissecting my soul. You know my deepest fears. I know you wear those serious clothes and that rigid posture because you're afraid no one will take you seriously if they see the beautiful woman underneath." He reached for her glasses and, slowly, took them off. Elena blinked, feeling the relief of getting rid of those lenses without prescription that tired her so much, that glass armor she used only to appear older. Now, she saw his intensity with overwhelming clarity. Without the glasses, without the barrier, she felt naked. "Nathaniel. I could lose my license. No one knows we're here, Elena. The world outside has disappeared. Only this room exists. Only we exist." Her resistance broke. It wasn't a rational decision. It was the fatigue of being perfect, the weight of being the prodigy doctor, colliding with the raw desire she had tried to suppress since the first day he invaded her office in the rain. "Damn it," she whispered, her voice fading. Nathaniel didn't wait any longer. He kissed her. At first, it was a collision kiss, driven by 6 weeks of no. But quickly, the rhythm changed. He slowed down, his mouth moving over hers with a deliberation that made her sigh against his lips. It was a slow, wet, deep exploration, as if he wanted to memorize her taste. Elena felt the world spin. Nathaniel's hands went to her hair, finding the pins that held the severe bun she wore every day. One by one, he removed them, dropping them onto the rug, until her dark hair cascaded over her shoulders and back. "There she is," he murmured, pulling back just an inch to look into her eyes. His breath was hot against her face. "Elena. I wanted to meet her since the day I walked into your office wet from the rain. I tried so hard not to feel this," she confessed, trembling hands rising to touch his chest, feeling the erratic heartbeat through the thin shirt. "I repeated to myself every day, he is work, he is forbidden." "I know. I saw it in your eyes." He nuzzled her neck, inhaling her scent, making her arch her back instinctively. "You have no idea how hard it was to look at you in that armchair, so composed, so distant, and all I wanted was to cross the room and undo that perfect posture of yours." He kissed her again, and this time Elena didn't hold back. She opened her mouth for him, allowing their tongues to meet in an intimate and ancient dance. Her hands grabbed his shoulders, pulling him down, laying him on the plush rug while she straddled him, gravity and desire reversing roles. Nathaniel groaned, a low guttural sound of approval, and his hands traveled down her back, tracing the line of her spine to her waist, squeezing the curve of her hip through the fabric of her clothes. "You are the only real thing in my life, Elena," he said, his voice hoarse with emotion. "Everything else, the money, the companies, the contracts, is noise. You are the silence I needed. You are peace." That statement disarmed the last defense left in her. It wasn't just physical attraction, it was a connection of lonely souls who recognized each other. "And you," Elena whispered, caressing his face, tracing the strong jawline she had seen tense so many times. "You are the only one who saw me. Not the prodigy, not the doctor. Just me." He sat up, bringing her with him so she straddled his lap, her legs wrapping around his waist. The contact was electric. He began to unbutton her silk blouse, fingers nimble but trembling with anticipation. "Let me see you," he asked. "Without the barriers. Without the ethics. Just the woman." When the blouse opened, revealing pale skin illuminated by the firelight, Nathaniel looked at her with an expression bordering on veneration. He leaned in and kissed the sensitive skin of her collarbone, descending slowly, each touch of his lips a promise, each caress an adoration. Elena threw her head back, fingers buried in his hair, feeling a wave of heat and pleasure she didn't even know she was capable of feeling. "Nathaniel," she called his name, not as a warning, but as a prayer. "I'm here," he answered against her skin. "I am yours, Elena. Not because I paid, not because I needed to, but because I chose. I choose you." That night, while the storm raged outside, trying to tear down the world, inside that room they built a new one. There was no more doctor and patient. There was only a man and a woman, stripped of their masks and clothes, surrendering to each other with a hunger and tenderness that erased all fears, all rules, and all the time they had lost trying to be perfect alone. "Understood. Let's completely change direction. No running away, no guilt. Let's focus on the realization that everything they lived through, the sacrifice of youth, the focus on career, prepared them exactly for this moment." The storm had passed. The morning sun invaded the Hamptons' room, reflecting off the calm sea outside and bathing the rug where they slept in a golden and warm light. Elena woke up slowly, feeling herself float in a peace she didn't know. There was no familiar weight of anxiety, no mental list of urgent tasks, no armor of Dr. Vance. There was only the comforting weight of Nathaniel's arm over her waist and his calm breath against her nape. She didn't move. She wanted to prolong that instant forever. With eyes still closed, Elena let her mind travel through her 27 years. She thought of the endless nights in the library while friends went to parties. She thought of the boyfriends she dismissed because they seemed superficial, boys who didn't understand the complexities she carried. She thought about how she kept herself, focusing obsessively on work, career, perfection, thinking she was just building a resume. Now, feeling Nathaniel's warm skin glued to hers, she realized the truth: she wasn't just building a career. She was waiting. All that purity, all that focus, all the loneliness, it was all worth it. Because she saved it for him. For this man who, despite knowing her for only 6 weeks, knew her soul better than people who had lived with her their whole lives. "You're thinking too loud," Nathaniel's voice whispered, hoarse from sleep, next to her ear. Elena smiled and turned in his arms to face him. His face was relaxed, without the traces of tension he wore like a mask. His blue eyes opened, clear, focused entirely on her. "I was thinking about how lucky I am," she confessed, bringing her hand to his face, tracing the outline of his lips with her thumb. "And how everything makes sense now. Nathaniel held her hand and kissed her palm, in a gesture of absolute devotion. "You stayed," he said, as if he still didn't believe it. For a second, I was afraid I'd wake up and find a goodbye note and my check torn up. "I will never run away from you again, Nathaniel." Elena looked deep into his eyes. "I spent my life protecting myself, keeping everyone at a distance. But with you, I feel like the walls fell the moment you walked into my office. I know you. Not the billionaire, not the patient. I know the man. And he is mine." Nathaniel's eyes shone, misty with raw emotion. He pulled her closer so there wasn't a millimeter of distance between their naked bodies. "You know what I said in San Francisco?" he asked softly. "About having lost my youth? About having sold my soul for success and feeling like it was all in vain?" "Yes. You said you felt robbed. I was wrong." He shook his head, caressing her hair spread on the rug. "All that anguish, all that work, the sleepless nights building my empire. I would do it all again. Every second of suffering." "Why?" Elena whispered. "Because it was that path that led me to that rainy day in your office." He smiled, a smile of pure happiness. "If I were a normal 30-year-old guy, carefree and happy, I would never have needed you. I would never have found you. Losing my youth was the price I paid to have you now. And it was the best thing I ever did in my life." Elena's heart overflowed. That statement was more valuable than any of the billion-dollar contracts he had signed. "We are two broken people who fit perfectly together, aren't we?" she said, laughing through tears of joy. "We aren't broken, Elena." He rolled on top of her, propping himself on his elbows, looking at her as if she were the most precious thing in the world. "We are works of art that took a little longer to be ready. And now we have all the time in the world." He kissed her. Not with the desperate urgency of the night before, but with a proprietary calm, slow and deep. It was a good morning kiss, a thank you kiss, a love kiss. His hands roamed her body, no longer as an exploration, but as a recognition of territory. Elena arched against him, feeling alive, loved and, finally, home. "What do we do now?" she asked, when they separated for air, faces still close. Nathaniel smiled, nuzzling her nose. Now we forget New York for a few more days. We forget the company, the office, and the rules. I'm going to make breakfast for you. Then, we'll walk on the beach. And then, we'll come back to this bed and I'll spend the rest of the day proving how worth it was for you to wait for me." Elena laughed, a light and free sound. "Sounds like the perfect treatment plan, Mr. Cross." "Don't call me Mr. Cross," he murmured, returning to kiss her neck, making her sigh. "For you, I am just Nathaniel. The man who loves you." And there, in the morning light, with the sound of the sea as a witness, Elena knew that her real life had just begun. The weekend in the Hamptons wasn't just an interlude, it was a lifetime compressed into 48 hours. For the first time in years, Nathaniel didn't check the Asian stock market at 4 a.m. And for the first time in her adult life, Elena didn't feel guilt for not reading an academic paper or reviewing patient notes. They played house, a luxurious and intimate version of something they both skipped in their youth. Elena sat on the kitchen island, wearing only his light blue dress shirt that hid her thighs, watching Nathaniel cook. There was something incredibly sexy about the way that man, who moved billions of dollars with a phone call, was focused on flipping perfect eggs in the frying pan. "You cook with the same intensity you close mergers," she commented, smiling, a steaming mug of coffee in her hands. Nathaniel turned, leaning his hip against the counter, spatula in hand. His hair was messy, his bare chest showed subtle marks from her nails from the night before. He looked like a domestic god. "It's a matter of quality control, Dr. Vance." He winked, serving the plates and placing them before her. Then he walked around the island and stopped between her legs, spreading her knees to get as close as possible. He didn't eat immediately. Instead, he held her face and kissed her with the taste of coffee and promise. "I could live here," he murmured against her mouth. "Just the two of us. No cell signal. No New York." "The world would collapse without Nathaniel Cross," Elena teased, running her hands along his strong arms. "And I would be bored without my neurotic patients." Nathaniel laughed, pulling back a little to look into her eyes. His expression became serious, but soft. "Speaking of which, we need a plan. The real world is 3 hours' drive from here." Elena set down the mug. The bubble of perfection couldn't last forever, and both were too pragmatic to pretend otherwise. "My license," she said, the only remaining tension point. "If they find out I started a relationship with a patient during treatment, no one will know." Nathaniel's voice was firm, the voice of the man who solved impossible problems. "Listen, Elena. Technically, our contract ended on Friday night. What happened after was between two consenting civilians. But let's leave no room for doubt." He took her hand, interlacing fingers. "Tomorrow, my lawyer will send a formal notice terminating any professional bond. You will refer me to that Dr. Hoffman, the boring old man who follows the rules. We'll create a silent period." "A silent period?" Elena raised an eyebrow. "Yes. Officially, we don't see each other for a month. Publicly. But, in practice," he smiled, that mischievous smile that made her heart race. "I have private entrances in my building. You will visit me. We'll have dinner at my apartment. We'll travel on weekends to places where no one knows us. And in a while, when we meet by chance at a charity gala or art exhibition, it will be our official first date in the eyes of the world." Elena looked at him, amazed. He wasn't asking her to give up her career. He was building a fortress around her to protect her. "You thought of everything." "I protect what is mine, Elena. And you," he kissed her forehead, then the tip of her nose, then her lips. "You are the most valuable investment of my life. I won't let any stupid ethics rule take you from me." "I love you," she said, the ease with which the words came out surprising her. Nathaniel stopped. It was the first time she said that out loud, in daylight, without the heat of the sexual moment. "Say it again," he asked, voice hoarse. "I love you, Nathaniel. I love your mind, I love your strength, and I love the fact that you waited for me as much as I waited for you." He pulled her off the stool, hugging her tight, burying his face in her neck. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you know that." The trip back to Manhattan on Sunday late afternoon was the opposite of the trip there. On the way there was silence and tension. Now, Nathaniel's car was a cocoon of intimacy. They held hands the whole way, his left hand on the wheel, the right interlaced with hers on the center console. The radio played soft jazz. They talked about everything they hadn't had time to talk about in sessions. Favorite books, foods they hated, travel plans to Italy, Japan, places Nathaniel wanted to rewrite in memory now with her by his side. When the New York skyline appeared, with its illuminated skyscrapers against the night sky, Elena didn't feel the usual knot in her stomach. That city, which always seemed like a battlefield where she had to fight to prove her worth, now seemed different. It seemed like a playground. They were a team. The financial prodigy and the psychoanalysis prodigy. Together, that city stood no chance against them. The driver stopped in front of Elena's building on the Upper West Side. "I don't like leaving you here," Nathaniel said, looking at the entrance of her modest building. "I wanted to take you to the penthouse." "Patience, Mr. Cross," Elena teased, unbuckling her seatbelt. We have a plan, remember? The silent period. The silence will last exactly until 8 p.m. tomorrow, when my driver comes to pick you up for dinner at my apartment. No one will see. You are incorrigible. I am in love. He pulled her for a last kiss, ignoring the driver, ignoring the pedestrians on the sidewalk. It was a deep kiss of possession and promise. Go rest, Dr. Vance. Tomorrow you go back to being the serious psychoanalyst. But remember who you are when you take off your glasses. Elena smiled, feeling radiant. Good night, Nathaniel. She got out of the car and walked to the entrance. The cold New York wind hit her face, but she didn't feel cold. She felt invincible. She entered the elevator, pressed the button for her floor, and leaned her head against the mirror, laughing alone. Her perfectly planned life had gone completely off the rails. And, thank God for that. She had found not just a love, but a partner in crime to face adult life which, finally, seemed like a wonderful adventure and not just a duty to fulfill. Monday morning in Manhattan. The sky was that characteristic metallic gray, and sirens wailed in the distance like the city's soundtrack. To the world, Dr. Elena Vance was the same. She entered her office at 8 a.m. sharp, bun impeccable, tortoiseshell glasses in place, black coffee in hand. Clara, the secretary, greeted her with the usual nervous reverence. Good morning, doctor. The schedule is full. Mr. Miller called 3 times. Thank you, Clara. Elena smiled. It was a small, but genuine smile, which made Clara blink, confused. Dr. Vance rarely smiled before noon. Elena entered her room and closed the door. The smell of old books and leather was comforting, but now it seemed small. The first thing she did wasn't reviewing patient files. She sat down, pulled out official letterhead, and wrote the most important referral letter of her life. Dear Dr. Hoffman, I am referring patient Nathaniel Cross for continued analytical treatment. The patient presents a stabilized anxiety condition and requires maintenance monitoring. Due to scheduling conflicts, I will not be able to proceed with the case. Sincerely, Dr. Elena Vance. She reread the text. It was the most professional and perfect lie she had ever told. Scheduling conflicts. The only conflict was that she was irrevocably in love with the patient. Upon sending the email, she felt a thrill. It wasn't guilt. It was the adrenaline of having a delicious secret. She, the woman who always followed the rules, was now breaking the biggest one, and she had never felt so alive. The day dragged. Every patient seemed to speak in slow motion. Elena listened, nodded, made the correct interventions, but a part of her mind, the part that woke up in the Hamptons, was elsewhere. She was counting the minutes. At 7:45 p.m., her cell phone vibrated in the drawer. Nathaniel, the car is on the corner. Plate 448. The driver knows the protocol. I'm waiting for you. Elena felt her heart beat in her throat. She dismissed Clara early, swapped her stiletto heels for higher and bolder ones she kept in the closet, let her hair down, and put her glasses in her purse. Leaving the building and getting into the black sedan with tinted windows, she felt like a spy in a noir movie. Nathaniel's penthouse in Tribeca wasn't just an apartment, it was an observatory over the world he had conquered. The private elevator opened directly into the entrance hall. The space was vast, modern, with contemporary art and floor-to-ceiling windows showing the island of Manhattan illuminated like an electric Christmas tree. But Elena didn't look at the view. Nathaniel was waiting for her, leaning against a marble console, holding 2 glasses of whiskey. He was still wearing his suit trousers and white work shirt, but the tie was gone and the top buttons were undone. He looked tired, that sexy tiredness of someone who spent the day dominating the world, but when his eyes landed on her, the exhaustion evaporated. You came, he said, his voice low, as if he still had doubts she would show up. We had a plan, Elena replied, dropping her purse on the floor and walking to him. And I keep my plans. Nathaniel set the glasses down without looking away and came to meet her. The clash of bodies was immediate. He wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her against him with an urgent need, burying his face in her loose hair. It was the longest day of my life, he murmured against her neck. I was in meetings with lawyers, bankers, journalists, and the only thing I could hear was your voice in my head. I sent the email to Dr. Hoffman, she said, laughing softly while his hands roamed her back. Great. My assistant scheduled the first session for Thursday. They told me he's a classic Freudian who grumbles a lot. You're going to hate him. I will. He pulled back to look at her face, thumbs caressing her cheekbones. Because he isn't you. Because I can't tell him the truth. And what is the truth, Nathaniel? The truth is that my anxiety disappeared because the cause of it was resolved. I wasn't sick, Elena. I was lonely. And now, he kissed her softly, a welcome kiss that promised much more intense things for the rest of the night. Now I have the only person who understands me. He guided her to the Italian leather sofa facing the panoramic view of the city. Dinner? He asked. My chef left something prepared, or we can order. I'm not hungry, Elena interrupted, pulling him by the non-existent tie, the boldness of the new Elena surprising her. I want you to show me this place. I want to know where you live when you're not running around the world. Nathaniel smiled, that boyish smile only she saw. This place was always just a luxury dorm. Cold. Empty. He held her hand and led her down the hall. But today, when I ordered flowers, it felt like a home for the first time. Elena looked around. There were vases of white orchids and lilies on every surface. The apartment smelled of fresh flowers and his cologne. He had transformed a lonely billionaire's cave into a sanctuary for her. They reached the master bedroom. The view from there was even more impressive, with the Freedom Tower shining in the distance. But Nathaniel's focus was entirely on her. Welcome to my real life, Elena, he said, stopping behind her and hugging her, looking at their reflection in the window glass, with the city at their feet. No one enters here. Only the cleaning crew and my assistants. You are the first woman I bring here who isn't decorative. I am not decorative, Nathaniel. I am the structure. I know. He turned her to him. The city light illuminated his profile, highlighting the determination and love in his blue eyes. And that is why, even if we have to pretend out there, in here there are no secrets. He began to take off her coat, movements slow and reverent. Tell me about your day, he asked, kissing her exposed shoulder. Tell me about the boring patients. Tell me about Clara. Tell me everything Dr. Vance had to endure so Elena could be here now. And that was what won her over completely. Not the multi-million-dollar apartment, not the view, not the power. It was the fact that, after a day conquering Wall Street, all Nathaniel Cross wanted was to hear about her routine, while undressing her as if she were the most valuable gift he had ever received. That night, under the lights of New York, they sealed the double life pact. Outside, they would be respectable strangers. But inside, between Egyptian linen sheets and shared sighs, they were accomplices, lovers and, finally, complete. 3 weeks. 21 days of a clandestine choreography that would make any spy agency jealous. To the outside world, Nathaniel Cross and Dr. Elena Vance were strangers. Nathaniel attended sessions with Dr. Hoffman on Thursdays, theatrically complaining about the old therapist's Freudian fixation to his assistant, ensuring the alibi was solid. Elena, for her part, immersed herself in work, accepting new cases and writing an article on burnout in young executives, an irony only she appreciated. But, in the shadows of New York, they lived a parallel reality. They had strict rules. Elena never entered through the front door of his building in Tribeca. The driver dropped her at the service entrance, used for discreet deliveries, where an elevator with a security code took her directly to the penthouse. They didn't go out for dinner. Their world was reduced to the 400 square meters of Nathaniel's apartment. But, within those walls, they traveled the world. On a Tuesday, Nathaniel brought Japan to her, a private sushi chef, who signed a draconian confidentiality agreement, and Kurosawa movies projected on the living room wall. On a rainy Friday, they transformed the living room into a fortress of pillows and blankets, drinking cheap wine and eating dollar pizza, just to prove they could be normal. But the real test happened in the fourth week. The Museum of Modern Art, MoMA, was organizing its annual autumn gala. It was the event where the New York elite went to see and be seen. Elena didn't plan to go. The invitation came through a patient, an art curator who insisted Elena needed to come out of her shell. "You work too much, Dr. Vance," said the patient. "Come. Drink free champagne. Critique modern art. It will do you good." Elena accepted, thinking it would be an innocuous night. She didn't know that Cross Holdings was the main sponsor of the night. When she arrived, wearing a minimalist black silk dress, elegant, but discreet enough to blend into the shadows, the main lobby was already full. And then, she saw him. Nathaniel was in the center of the hall, surrounded by sharks. He wore a custom-made tuxedo that looked like it had been sculpted on his body. His hair was perfectly combed, his posture was that of Nathaniel Cross, the untouchable billionaire. He laughed at something a banker said, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. Elena felt the air leave her lungs. It was strange seeing him like that, with full armor, after waking up with him disheveled and sleepy that same morning. She took a glass of champagne and retreated near a column, watching him. It was a fascinating case study, the public man versus the private man. Suddenly, as if feeling the weight of her gaze, Nathaniel stopped talking. He turned his head, ignoring the banker, and his eyes scanned the crowd with radar precision. And they found her. 30 meters away, through a sea of diamonds and egos, their gazes met. Nathaniel didn't smile. Didn't wave. His expression became intense, predatory, and undeniably possessive. He looked at her dress, at her exposed neck, and then returned to her eyes with a clear message: "You are mine." Elena's cell phone vibrated in her clutch. "Nathaniel, you look stunning. And it is torture to see you and not be able to touch you." Elena lowered her eyes to the screen, feeling her face heat up. She typed quickly, "Elena, the sponsor's speech is in 10 minutes. Focus, Mr. Cross." "Nathaniel, my focus is entirely on the woman in black by the column. If you don't leave here in 5 minutes, I will cross this hall and kiss you in front of the entire New York press." Elena looked up. Nathaniel was still staring at her, and she saw he wasn't joking. His patience for the shadow game was running out. The recklessness of youth, the one they had repressed for so long, was bubbling up. "Elena, meet me at the east exit. Now." She set down the glass and slipped through the crowd, leaving before anyone noticed her. The east exit was a discreet side door that led to a less busy street. Elena pushed the heavy door and stepped out into the cold November night. She didn't have time to breathe. A strong hand pulled her into the shadows of a construction scaffold. Before she could scream, she smelled the familiar scent of sandalwood in Nathaniel's mouth on hers. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was hungry, frustrated, desperate. He pressed her against the brick wall, hands holding her face as if she would disappear if he let go. "You are crazy," he whispered against her lips, breathing ragged. "Coming here, in that dress, I didn't know you were coming," she defended herself, grabbing the lapels of his tuxedo. But I liked seeing you in your natural habitat. The King of New York. I hate this. He rested his forehead on hers. I hate having to pretend I don't know you. I hate seeing other men looking at you and not being able to smash their faces. Only one more week, Nathaniel. The plan, to hell with the plan. He kissed her neck, making her shiver. Let's go. Now. The driver is on the corner. You have to give the speech. You are the sponsor. Nathaniel stopped. Looked at her, dark eyes with desire. The speech takes 10 minutes. Wait for me in the car? Nathaniel, wait for me. Please. If I know you are in the back seat, waiting for me, I can handle another hour of this circus. Elena ran her hand over his face, fixing a lock of hair that had fallen on his forehead during the stolen kiss. I'll wait. Nathaniel smiled, kissed her palm and, with a last intense look, went back inside the museum. Elena walked to the black car parked on the corner. The driver, who already knew the routine and was paid to be deaf and blind, opened the door for her. She sat on the soft leather of the back seat, his scent still present in the air conditioning. She pulled out her phone and opened the live stream of the gala. On the screen, Nathaniel was going up on stage. He looked composed, powerful, the master of the universe. But when he started talking about passion and authenticity in art, Elena saw what no one else saw. She saw the slight flush on his neck. She saw the way he looked at the camera as if he were looking through it, directly at her, in the dark of the car. Because true art, just like true love, demands courage to be exposed, he said in the video. Elena smiled in the dark. The month of silence was almost over. And she couldn't wait to make noise. Thursday arrived cold and clear, a perfect winter night in New York. The location chosen for the end of silence couldn't be more theatrical, the Metropolitan Opera House at Lincoln Center. It was the opening night of Carmen. In the Upper West Side apartment, Elena looked at herself in the full-length mirror. Dr. Vance had stayed in the drawer. The woman staring back wore an emerald green velvet dress, with a back neckline that was, at the same time, elegant and a declaration of war on her former shyness. Without glasses. Hair loose in soft waves, dark red lipstick. The cell phone vibrated. Nathaniel, I'm in the main foyer. Surrounded by vultures. The show starts in 20 minutes. Elena smiled, put the phone in her golden clutch and went out into the night. The entrance to Lincoln Center was an organized chaos of furs, jewelry and photographers' flashes. Elena climbed the carpeted stairs, feeling exposed without her usual armor, but powerful in the green dress. She entered the main lobby and spotted the target. Nathaniel formed the center of a closed circle of businessmen in expensive tuxedos. They were the sharks of Wall Street, Sterling, an arrogant real estate investor, Miller, a senior banker, and 2 other executives from Cross Holdings. Elena stopped about 5 meters from the group, pretending to look for someone in the crowd, looking dazzling and slightly lost. It didn't take 3 seconds to be noticed. Jesus, look at that, Sterling muttered, interrupting the conversation about interest rates and tilting his champagne glass toward Elena. The group turned in unison. Nathaniel turned too. When he saw her, his heart skipped a beat. His urge was to run over there and cover her with his jacket, hiding her from the predatory gazes of the men beside him. Anxiety tightened his chest, jealousy mixed with pride, but he forced his face to remain impassive. He had to let the scene unfold. Emerald green, Miller commented, with a low and rude whistle. Alone at the premiere of Carmen? That is an invitation to danger. She looks lost, observed another executive. Or looking for prey. Nathaniel squeezed the stem of his glass hard enough to almost break the crystal. Who has the courage? Challenged Sterling, fixing his tie knot. Who goes there to save her from loneliness? I bet $500 I get her number before the first act. Before Sterling could take a step, Nathaniel handed his glass to a passing waiter. Save your money, said Nathaniel, voice cold and calm, but with a glint of challenge in his eyes. I'll handle this. You, Cross? Sterling laughed. The business monk? You don't even know how to talk to a woman unless it's about mergers and acquisitions. Watch and learn, said Nathaniel. He walked to her. The distance was short, but the tension was miles long. When he stopped in front of her, the group of men, moved by curiosity and the instinct of competition, approached, forming a semicircle around the couple. Good evening, said Nathaniel, loud enough for the group to hear. It seems Lincoln Center is too big to be alone. Need help? Elena turned, acting surprised perfectly. Good evening. Actually, I'm waiting for a friend, or was. She checked her phone, sighing. Looks like he had an unforeseen event and won't make it. The group of men laughed, moving closer, as if smelling blood in the water. A fool, said Sterling, intruding and pushing his shoulder forward, trying to overshadow Nathaniel. Who would leave a woman like you waiting? I am Sterling. Investments. And you are. Elena smiled politely at Sterling, but her eyes went right back to Nathaniel. Elena Vance. And what do you do, Elena? Asked Miller. Model? Actress? I am a psychoanalyst, she replied, lifting her chin. There was a murmur of surprise. Nathaniel took the cue, narrowing his eyes in an expression of fake recognition. Wait a moment, Nathaniel took a step forward, blocking Sterling's view. Dr. Vance? Elena looked at him, entering the game. Mr. Cross? I knew that name. Nathaniel smiled, a charming and public smile. You did some consulting for my company a few months ago, didn't you? On stress management for executives. Yes, that's right, she confirmed. Nathaniel shook his head, looking her up and down with an appreciation that made her stomach flip. Forgive my initial doubt. It's just, he paused dramatically, without the glasses and that severe clinical posture, you look very different. Unrecognizable, actually. I hope that is a compliment, Mr. Cross, she teased. It is the greatest compliment I can give. He turned to the group, hand hovering near her waist, but not touching, marking territory. Gentlemen, this woman is brilliant. I have to say, she has a sharper mind than any of us here. Her work is exceptional. Brilliant and beautiful, Sterling tried again, smiling at Elena. Maybe I need therapy, Dr. Vance. I've been very stressed. Accept a glass of champagne in my box to discuss my symptoms? Nathaniel didn't even let Elena answer. He let out a short, dry laugh. Careful, Sterling. Nathaniel placed his hand lightly on Elena's elbow, a possessive touch that sent a clear signal to all the alpha males present. She dismantles fragile egos before breakfast. You would leave the office crying. Besides, Nathaniel looked into Elena's eyes. Since her friend was rude enough to miss, I feel it is my corporate responsibility to ensure my company's consultant has a pleasant evening. Corporate responsibility? Miller mocked, but took a step back. Right, Elena, said Nathaniel, ignoring them. Care to join me? My box has the best acoustics. And I promise not to talk business. Elena smiled, completely ignoring Sterling and the others. Since Mr. Sterling seems like a very complex clinical case for a night off. I accept, Mr. Cross. Nathaniel offered his arm. Elena interlaced hers. Gentlemen, Nathaniel bid farewell with a victorious nod. They turned their backs and walked toward the staircase. Behind them, the group stood watching. "Sorry about that," muttered Miller, taking a sip of his drink. "But Cross just outplayed us." "Consulting, right?" grumbled Sterling, adjusting his coat, defeated. "Did you see how he looked at her? He doesn't care about her mind." "He fell hard," whispered another executive. "Never seen Nathaniel defend territory like that. He really got interested." Far away, climbing the stairs, Nathaniel leaned into Elena's ear. "Fragile egos?" she whispered, laughing. "I was being nice. What I wanted to say was, back off, she's mine." "You were perfect," she said, squeezing his arm. "And now, Mr. Cross, take me to the dark before I have to psychoanalyze any more of your friends." Friday morning in New York dawned with the usual aggression, but inside Dr. Elena Vance's office, the air was different. Elena arrived at the usual time, but Clara, her always discreet and nervous secretary, was standing at the door, holding a copy of the New York Post as if it were a murder weapon. "Doctor," Clara swallowed hard. "The phone hasn't stopped ringing. Vogue called. Vanity Fair called. Even a producer from Good Morning America." Elena sighed, took off her coat and held out her hand. "Let me see, Clara." On the cover, under the screaming headline "The Market Muse, Who Tamed Nathaniel Cross," was a full-page photo. It was the moment on the Lincoln Center stairs. Nathaniel looked at her not as a billionaire looks at a trophy, but as a starving man looks at his salvation. The green dress shone against the black of the surrounding tuxedos. Elena felt butterflies in her stomach, but surprisingly, it wasn't fear. It was vanity. She looked beautiful. They made a powerful couple. "Cancel the interviews, Clara," said Elena, handing back the newspaper with a calm smile that left the secretary stunned. "Say that Dr. Vance does not comment on her personal life and that the schedule for new patients is closed until next year." She entered the room and closed the door. As soon as she sat down, the phone vibrated. "Nathaniel, have you seen? Apparently, I've been tamed. If they knew you're the one in charge." "Good morning, my muse." Elena laughed, typing the reply. "Elena, the photo turned out good. But Clara is having a panic attack out there." "Nathaniel, I'll send something to calm things down." "Lunch with me?" "Elena, where?" "Nathaniel, at the grill." 12:30. "Let's give them round two." At 12:30 p.m., a black Bentley stopped in front of the medical building on the Upper East Side. It wasn't discreet. Nathaniel didn't want to be discreet. When Elena left the building, there were two paparazzi across the street. Cameras flashed. Nathaniel got out of the car to open the door for her personally, an old-fashioned gesture he insisted on keeping. He wore an impeccable gray suit and sunglasses, looking like a movie star. "They are following us," murmured Elena, accepting his hand, feeling that familiar electric shock. "Let them work," he said, kissing her cheek, lingeringly, to ensure the photos turned out good. "The more they see us together in mundane situations, the faster the scandal becomes just old news." At the Grill restaurant, the epicenter of power in Manhattan, their entrance caused the same effect as the opera, heads turning, forks stopping halfway to mouths. The maitre led them to the best table, the one where billion-dollar deals were closed. But Nathaniel didn't ask for the wine list. He asked for sparkling water and focused all his attention on her. "How was your morning?" he asked, holding her hand over the white tablecloth. "Surreal." Elena relaxed her shoulders. "I thought I would feel exposed. Judged. But, actually, I feel relieved." "Relieved?" "Yes." She looked into his eyes. I spent 27 years trying to be invisible, trying to be just my brain. Today, when I saw that photo, I saw a complete woman. Brain, body and heart. And I realized I don't have to choose. I can be Dr. Vance and I can be Nathaniel Cross's girlfriend. Nathaniel squeezed her hand. You are much more than my girlfriend, Elena. You are my partner in this life. Speaking of which, Elena lowered her voice, leaning forward. I heard Sterling was asking about me this morning at the golf club. Nathaniel hardened his expression, possessive jealousy returning instantly. What did he want? Wanted to know if the consulting was still active. Elena smiled, delighted with his reaction. Seems he wants to hire my services. I'll buy his company and fire him, growled Nathaniel, without any trace of humor. Elena laughed, caressing his hand to calm him. I told his secretary that my exclusivity clause with Mr. Cross is lifetime and irrevocable. The tension in Nathaniel's shoulders dissolved, replaced by a look of pure adoration. Lifetime? That sounds like a promise, Dr. Vance. It's a risk analysis. She winked. You are the best investment I ever made. The afternoon brought a surprise. When Elena returned to the office, Clara wasn't in panic. She was smiling, looking at a gigantic arrangement of white peonies, Elena's favorite flowers, that occupied half the reception. But they weren't for Elena. The card said, to Clara, for weathering the media storm. Nathaniel Cross. Elena smiled. He was conquering her territory, piece by piece, with charm and strategy. At night, in his apartment, the atmosphere was of quiet celebration. They were on the sofa, Nathaniel with the laptop on his lap finishing some emails, Elena reading a book with her head on his lap. It was domestic. It was real. I have a trip next week, he said, closing the computer and running his hand through her hair. Elena felt the old reflex of abandonment arise, but controlled it. Where to? London and then Dubai. 5 days. Okay. We'll have to use FaceTime. No, Nathaniel put the computer on the coffee table and pulled her up, so she was sitting on his lap, legs wrapping around his waist. Remember that first day? When I demanded you come with me as a doctor? How could I forget? You wet my entire carpet. This time is different. He held her face with both hands. I don't need the doctor. My anxiety disappeared. But I discovered that I am incapable of seeing a new city without wanting to show it to you. I can't close a deal without wanting to celebrate with you in the hotel room after. Nathaniel. I have patience. Cancel. Reschedule. Take a vacation. He kissed her softly. You are 27, Elena. Worked nonstop since 22. Come with me. Not to work. To live. I want to walk holding hands with you in Hyde Park. I want to buy gold for you in the souks of Dubai. I want us to be just two young people spending money and loving each other around the world. Elena looked at him. Her schedule was full. Responsibility weighed. But then she remembered the feeling of waking up in his arms in the Hamptons. She remembered the promise they made to recover their lost youth. London is beautiful this time of year, she said, surrendering. Nathaniel's smile lit up the entire room. I'll have the jet ready. He kissed her, and Elena knew that, no matter where they went, as long as they were together, she would always be in the right place. A year and a half later, the Manhattan skyline looked different seen from the 40th floor of the building in Hudson Yards. Elena walked down the glass corridor of the Vance Institute for Performance and Mental Health. The space had nothing to do with the small beige room where it all began. There, natural light flooded everything, the walls were decorated with calming modern art and cutting-edge technology was present in every detail. She stopped in front of the meeting room. Inside, 12 therapists, the brightest, most qualified and intelligent she managed to steal from the best clinics in New York and London, discussed a complex case under the supervision of Dr. Chin. Elena smiled, feeling a quiet satisfaction. She no longer needed to be inside putting out fires. Her role now was strategic. She managed, gave high-level training and defined the methodology. The machine worked perfectly without her. The door to Elena's office opened silently. She didn't need to turn around to know who it was, the change in air pressure, the sudden electricity, it was him. Nathaniel entered. He was more relaxed than ever, the perpetual tension in his shoulders replaced by the confidence of someone who has already conquered everything that mattered. Dr. Chin says the team is ready to take on crisis cases without your direct supervision, he said, stopping behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder as both watched the team working through the glass. You built an empire, my love. We built it, corrected Elena, turning in his arms. She wore a cream silk dress, light and elegant, far from the severe suits of the past. I brought the psychology, you brought the vision. And, most importantly, the freedom. That was the goal, wasn't it? Nathaniel caressed her face. Create something that ran by itself so we could live. Elena looked at the schedule on the tablet on the table. The next 3 weeks were blocked. No meetings, no supervision, no emergency calls. The team was trained to hold the fort. It's strange, she confessed. Knowing I have the afternoon free. And tomorrow morning. And the whole month. You're going to need that time, Mrs. Future Cross. Nathaniel smiled, eyes shining with an anticipation that made her heart race. Exactly 21 days left. Elena felt a shiver run down her spine. The wedding. During that year and a half of building the Institute and consolidating the new phase of Nathaniel's life, they had planned everything in secret. No media events at the Met, no hundreds of guests they barely knew. 3 weeks, she whispered. Everything is ready? Everything. Nathaniel pulled her closer. The location on the Amalfi Coast is confirmed. Security has already ensured no paparazzi will get within a 5-kilometer radius. It will be exactly as we wanted, intimate, small, just us and the few people who really matter. And then? She asked, teasing him, although she knew the answer by heart. Then, the Maldives. He kissed her forehead. I booked the private island. 3 weeks without cell signal, without institute emails, without cross-holdings meetings. Just white sand, blue sea, and the two of us recovering all the time we lost in our 20s. Elena looked at the meeting room one last time. Saw Dr. Chin leading competently. Saw the young therapists taking notes fervently. Her legacy was safe. Her obligation to the world was fulfilled. Now, her obligation was only to the man in front of her. You know what I was thinking? Said Elena, grabbing her purse and turning off the tablet. What? That I don't need to stay here until 6 p.m. Dr. Chen has everything under control. And we have a final wedding menu tasting to discuss, or we can simply go home and practice for the honeymoon. Nathaniel laughed, a deep happy sound that vibrated in his chest against hers. I really like the second option, Dr. Vance. He interlaced his fingers with hers and guided her out of the office, passing the gold plaque with her name. They entered the private elevator, leaving behind the empire they built with intelligence and effort, ready to focus on the only construction left, the happily ever after. The doors closed, isolating them from the professional world. 21 days, murmured Nathaniel before kissing her. And then, you are mine forever. The Amalfi Coast, in Italy, needed no filters. The late afternoon sun bathed the cliffs of Ravello in golden and pink light, and the smell of Sicilian lemon and sea mixed with the scent of white flowers decorating the gardens of Villa Simbrone. There were no paparazzi. There was no press. There were no investors talking about interest rates. There were only 30 white chairs, arranged in a semicircle facing the infinite Tyrrhenian Sea. Nathaniel was at the makeshift altar, an arch of natural flowers. He wasn't wearing a black tuxedo this time. He wore a light beige linen suit, no tie, collar open letting his neck breathe. He looked years younger than the man who had invaded Elena's office on that rainy night in New York. The tension in his jaw was gone forever. When the music started, not the traditional wedding march, but a soft cello melody, the 30 guests stood up. Elena appeared. She wore no veil. Her face was uncovered, clean, radiant. The dress was minimalist, fluid silk moving with the sea breeze, simple and devastatingly elegant. No glasses. No armor. Just Elena. As she walked across the grass toward him, Nathaniel felt his eyes well up. He, who had been taught that crosses don't cry, let a single tear roll down without bothering to wipe it. She reached him. He held her hands, which were warm and firm. "You took a lifetime to get here," he whispered, ignoring the celebrant for a moment. "Traffic was terrible," she teased, voice choked, squeezing his fingers. The vows were spoken not to the audience, but to each other, in low voices, like a secret. "I was drowning in success and loneliness," said Nathaniel, looking into her eyes. "I had everything, and I had nothing. You didn't just save me from anxiety, Elena. You saved me from a half-life. I promise to love you, respect you, and remind you every day that life happens outside of books and meeting rooms." Elena breathed deep, smiling through tears. "I used my intelligence as a shield and my career as a hiding place. You invaded my world, wet my carpet and forced me to feel. I promise to be your safe harbor, your partner and your lover. And I promise I will never let Dr. Vance get in the way of what Elena feels for you." When the kiss sealed the union, there was applause, but for them, the sound was muffled by the roar of blood in their veins. They had made it. They had survived pressure, ethics, fear, and success itself. 3 days later. Ba Atoll, Maldives. The world was blue. Turquoise water, sky blue sky, deep blue where the coral reef ended. The overwater villa was a sanctuary of isolation. There were no walls, just glass and wood. The only sound was the water gently lapping at the bungalow pillars. Elena lay on a lounge chair on the deck, wearing only a bikini and an open shirt of Nathaniel's. The tablet and phone were locked in the room safe, off for 72 hours. Nathaniel came out of the water, climbing the deck ladder, tanned and wet skin glistening in the sun. He grabbed a towel, dried his face and walked to her, blocking the sun. "Dr. Cross," he said, testing the new name with a lazy smile. "Diagnosis of the day?" Elena lowered her sunglasses, this time, just for UV protection, and looked at her husband. "Diagnosis: patient presents dangerous levels of relaxation and happiness. Recommend hydration with coconut water and continuous exposure to wife's affection." Nathaniel laughed and leaned in to kiss her, drops of salt water falling on her warm skin. "You know what I was thinking while swimming?" he asked, sitting on the edge of the lounge chair. "About mergers and acquisitions?" "No," he became serious for a moment, looking at the infinite horizon. "I was thinking we spent our 20s running. We ran to college, ran to the first million, ran for recognition. We thought the finish line was a place, a title, a number in a bank account. And isn't it?" "No," he turned to her, holding the hand where the simple gold band shone. "The finish line was this. Us. The freedom of being here, now, owing nothing to anyone. The Institute runs itself. The company runs itself. We are free. Elena sat up, wrapping her legs around his waist, hugging him. It was worth it, Nathaniel. All the waiting. All the sacrifice. It all brought us to this bungalow, to this moment. He laid her gently on the lounge chair, hovering over her, the Maldives sky reflected in blue eyes that, one day, had been full of panic and now overflowed with peace. We have the rest of our lives to do nothing, Elena. To travel. To read. To have children, if we want. To be just young and in love, as we should have been from the start. Then let's start, she whispered, pulling him to her. Nathaniel kissed her, and in that kiss there was no urgency, nor fear of tomorrow. There was only the absolute certainty of now. Dr. Elena Vance and Mr. Nathaniel Cross had left their armor in New York. There, in the middle of the ocean, they were just a man and a woman who had learned the hardest lesson of all, that professional success is admirable, but love is the only true cure. And so, under the eternal sun of the Maldives, the session was, finally and forever, adjourned. The end.